You're standing at the counter. The menu's right there. Burger, fries, a drink, all for a number that genuinely seems too low. You do the quick mental math anyone does without thinking about it. Ingredients, cooking, the building, the person behind the register. It doesn't quite add up. Either this company is losing money on purpose, or something else is going on.
Something else is going on. Almost nothing on that menu is priced the way you think it is. Some items are there specifically to lose money. Some items are quietly funding the entire operation. And the number you see isn't really designed to reflect cost at all. It's designed to get you to make a specific decision. And it works on almost everyone, including people who know exactly how it works. By the end of this video, you'll see the actual mechanics behind every number on that board, and you'll never read a fast food menu the same way again. Let's start with the item that shouldn't make sense, the genuinely cheap burger, or the dollar menu item, priced low enough that it looks like it can't possibly be profitable on its own. And often, it isn't. This is a well-known retail concept called a loss leader, a product deliberately priced at or even below what it costs to make, specifically to get you in the door. The company isn't confused about their own costs. They know exactly what that burger costs to produce, and they're pricing it low on purpose, because the burger was never the actual product being sold. The actual product is you, standing at the counter, about to make several more decisions.
Here's why this works. Almost nobody walks in, orders exactly one loss leader item, and leaves. The cheap burger gets you through the door and standing at the register. And once you're there, you're looking at the rest of the menu. The fries, the drink, maybe a second sandwich, maybe a dessert. The company is willing to lose a small amount of money on that one item because the overall visit, on average, is still profitable once everything else you order gets added in. It's a calculated trade. Lose a little on the item that gets attention, make it back and then some on everything that follows.
This is also why loss leader items tend to be heavily advertised specifically, while the rest of the menu gets comparatively little marketing attention. The advertised price isn't really describing what a typical visit costs. It's describing the cheapest possible way to walk in the door. Bait, essentially, that's completely honest about its own price while doing almost none of the actual financial work of the business.
If the burger is where the company is willing to lose money, the drink is very often where an enormous amount of that money gets made back, and then some. Here's the actual math behind a fountain soda, and it's genuinely more extreme than most people assume. The syrup, water, ice, and cup that make up a typical fountain drink cost the restaurant a genuinely tiny fraction of what that drink sells for, commonly discussed in the industry as costing pennies to produce, while selling for several dollars. That's not a modest markup. That's one of the highest profit margins of literally anything on the menu, food or drink.
Think about what that means structurally. A burger might have a thin margin, sometimes close to zero on a loss leader item specifically. But a large fountain drink, ordered as part of the exact same meal, can carry a margin so wide that it's doing a genuinely disproportionate amount of the profit-generating work for that entire transaction. Which is exactly why you'll notice combo meals are almost always priced to nudge you toward getting a drink included, and why upsizing a drink specifically, more than almost any other single upsell on the menu, tends to be pushed the hardest by cashiers and self-order kiosks alike. A slightly bigger cup, filled mostly with ice and syrup water, costs the restaurant almost nothing extra to provide, while the price jump for that upsize goes almost entirely to profit.
This is also part of why free refills exist at all in places that offer them. It feels generous. The actual cost to the restaurant of a refill, more ice, more syrup water, is genuinely negligible. So offering unlimited refills costs almost nothing while creating real goodwill and making the whole meal feel like a better value than it mathematically was.
Real quick,
If you like having stuff like this actually explained instead of just repeated as a fun fact, that's genuinely most of what we do here. Subscribing to Compound Economy means you catch the next one, and it actually helps a lot on our end. Okay, because the next part is where the menu itself starts working on you psychologically, and it's genuinely clever.
You've almost certainly noticed that fast food prices rarely end in a round number. $4.99 instead of $5, $7.49 instead of $7.50. This isn't an accident, and it isn't really about the extra cent either. It's about something called charm pricing, and it's been studied extensively because it genuinely, measurably works. The idea is that people process the leftmost digit of a price disproportionately, almost automatically, before fully registering the rest of the number. $4.99 gets mentally filed closer to $4 than to $5, even though the actual difference is a single cent. Multiple studies across retail generally have found that switching a price from a round number to a charm price just below it can measurably increase how often people buy the item, even when they consciously know the difference is trivial. Your brain does the rounding before your conscious mind gets a vote.
Menu positioning matters just as much as the price itself. Items placed at the top right of a menu board, or set apart visually with a box or a slightly different color, get looked at first and remembered longer. This is well documented in menu design research generally, not just fast food specifically. So, the items a restaurant most wants you to order, usually the highest margin combo options, tend to get the most visually prominent placement, while the individual, unbundled items get pushed toward less noticeable positions on the board.
Then there's anchoring, and this is where combo pricing gets genuinely sneaky. Imagine a menu that shows a large combo meal at one price, right next to the option to build that same meal item by item. The combo is almost always priced to look like a clear discount compared to ordering everything separately. Sometimes it saves you real money, sometimes the savings are much smaller than they appear once you actually add up the individual prices. But just seeing the combo price sitting next to the higher separate item total makes the combo feel like the obviously smart choice, which is exactly the point. The separate prices aren't really there for people who plan to order individually. They're there to make the combo look better by comparison.
Put the last two chapters together, and the actual purpose of the value meal comes into focus. And it's not really what the name implies. A value meal typically bundles a food item with a low margin, often the same loss leader burger for Chapter 1, together with a drink carrying an enormous margin, at a combined price that's carefully calculated to still be highly profitable overall, while feeling like a discount to the customer standing at the counter. The value in value meal isn't primarily about giving you a great deal. It's about the combination being carefully engineered so the low-margin item pulls you toward the counter. The high-margin item does the actual profit work once you're there. And the bundled price makes the whole thing feel like a smart, simple decision rather than 3 separate calculations you'd have to make yourself. This is also why value meals are almost always priced just below a round number, positioned prominently on the menu board, and often given the most memorable, branded name of anything on the whole menu. Every single pricing psychology trick from the last chapter stacked together, aimed at the single combination the restaurant most wants you to order. It's not a coincidence that the item with the best marketing, the most prominent placement, and the most psychologically tuned price also happens to be the one that maximizes profit per transaction. That's the entire design.
None of this means you're being cheated exactly, or that the food is somehow worse because of how it's priced. The value meal often is a genuinely reasonable deal compared to ordering everything separately. But reasonable deal for the customer and carefully engineered to maximize the restaurant's profit aren't actually in conflict with each other. They're the same decision, viewed from 2 different sides of the counter. Zoom out from any single item, and there's a bigger layer of cost sitting underneath the whole menu that explains why prices differ so much from one location to another, even within the same chain. Every restaurant has to cover its fixed costs before a single item's margin actually becomes profit for that location. Rent or mortgage on the property, labor costs for everyone working that shift, utilities, equipment, and, as we covered in a previous video, for a lot of major fast food chains, a real estate arrangement where the company itself, not just the local franchise owner, is collecting rent on the building. All of that has to get covered before the low-margin burger and the high-margin drink actually start generating real profit for anyone in the chain.
This is a big part of why the exact same combo meal can cost noticeably more at a location in an expensive city center than at a location 20 minutes away in a cheaper suburb, even though the ingredients and the recipe are identical. Rent is dramatically higher in one location than the other, and labor costs often are too. The menu price isn't purely a reflection of what the food costs to make. It's also quietly absorbing whatever it costs to keep the doors open at that specific address, which is why the same menu, printed identically, can carry noticeably different prices depending purely on where you happen to be standing when you order it.
None of this is really a story about deception. Every mechanic in this video is something a restaurant can defend openly, and mostly does. Loss leaders, drink margins, charm pricing, combo anchoring, and cost-adjusted regional pricing are all standard, well-documented practices across retail generally, not some secret exclusive to fast food. But understanding the actual mechanics does change how you can read a menu. If you're trying to get real value, the individual loss leader item, ordered on its own without a drink, is often the genuinely cheapest way to eat there. You're just declining to be the customer the pricing strategy is actually built around. If you do want the drink anyway, understanding that it's carrying most of the profit margin on your order at least means you're making an informed trade rather than an accidental one. And recognizing charm pricing and combo anchoring for what they are doesn't make you immune to them. Nobody's fully immune to well-tested psychological pricing. But it does mean you're choosing the combo because you actually want it, not just because the menu board made it look obviously smart. So next time you're standing at that counter, looking at a menu that seems almost too cheap to make sense, now you know it doesn't need to make sense item by item. It only needs to make sense as a whole, carefully engineered system, and it very much does. If you found this useful, subscribe to Compound Economy.